they'll see Jacob and they're like, wow, I really feel for that brother. They're like, he's really just trying to, he's just trying to get through the day. You know what I mean?
How are you feeling with Boobich coming out?
Super excited. It's this weird balance where it came very slow, but also kind of fast. So I'm just ready for it to be out. I just want people to see it now, you know?
What can you tell us about your character and role in the series?
I like to compare him to Sharpay from High School Musical, honestly. I see him as, because there's like a Jake squad. There's three Jakes and Archer, but they're called the Jake squad. And Jake C is the lead Jake, who's the lead love interest in everything. But Jake M, who's my Jake, is one that's like, stop, they're crazy, stay away, focus. Because he's really fixated on the fact that, like, dude, we're so close to graduating. Please just focus on that. Let's just have some fun. You know, he gets so stressed. So I literally call him the Sharpay of the group.
That's a good way to put it. He's just the guy that's trying to make it to the end.
Honestly.
As far as your role, I looked at your Instagram and seen that you've been in improv and stage work and comedy. Would you consider your role to be kind of in that like comedic aspect as well?
Yeah, it does have the energy of improv, and just you need to just come in hot in every moment. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, you know, why are you doing that? And that really like amped up. And those tend to be some of the characters I related to when I did improv back in the day. So yeah, you can see, I guess, some of that influence just in like how hot you come in, you know, how like loud you come in a scene. That very much I feel like translates.
I know you've had a couple of side or background roles, like the one in Mythic Quest, which actually was cool because I saw that fans really liked that.
Yeah.
So do you think that your role as Jake in this one will be perceived similarly?
Yeah. I think people will resonate with them because it's like Jake C is likable, but he stresses everyone out. And like people will relate to Jacob, you know, the first watch or something, you're like, oh, Jake C, wow, what a heartthrob. Because Mason Versal, I mean, the man's a snack. But then when you rewatch, they'll see Jacob and they're like, wow, I really feel for that brother. They're like, he's really just trying to, he's just trying to get through the day. You know what I mean? He just wants to enjoy the last 2 weeks. It really, that's literally his only motive throughout the entire show. And it's hilarious to me.
Absolutely. I've always enjoyed like side or background characters, usually a little more than the main characters because they kind of give just that extra sense of being a person.
Yeah, I feel like all of the guest stars that pop in the show, they all have such a very distinct point of view. The leads have one way they're looking. We add in our own, but what about this? What about this? And it just kind of adds to that like back and forth, and it adds a lot more fun and dynamic to the show, I feel like.
Everyone seemed to mesh well together in the trailers.
We lucked out when it came to just how we all connected. So then by the time they called action for the first time, we just had so much trust in each other that we could just literally do whatever.
Were there any like struggles or difficulties when it came to getting together and filming the show?
Funny enough, not really, because once you're there, you're kind of contained in this little group. And like, you know, there's like cadence testing that everyone's in. So it's like we create this bubble. So once you're part of that bubble, you can actually, you know, pretty interchangeably see each other. So actually it was thankfully a lot easier than people would expect.
Would you consider, with your history at improv and some of the things you've been in, that comedy is like a passion of yours?
Yeah. I gotta blame it on the show New Girl. They shut it down. And like in a perfect world, like being part of a project like that, I feel like would be absolutely insane. Comedy, I tend to resonate it more towards naturally. Obviously, who doesn't want to do a really like cool in-depth thriller or something down the line? But it wouldn't hurt, you know, every day you just go in, try to outwit your castmates and then go home. Like that sounds amazing.
Would you say that New Girl is really what got you into comedy, or has that been something that you've always been into, or was there like a defining moment?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I'd say a defining moment, I always bring it back to this, is the day I decided to take acting seriously. Once again, going back to High School Musical, I need help. But I pulled a Troy Bolton. I snuck away from track practice and auditioned for a show. And it was this wacky comedy show where we were a Texas family in an old haunted British castle. It was called The Canterville Ghost. And like, you know, like I was the father and my wife was black, but my daughters were white. It was this whole like cool thing. I'm like, I'll never forget doing that show. I just came in and they just said, be as big as possible, you know? So I just kind of went in all wild and wacky and everyone was laughing. And I was like, snap, like, this is it. Like, this is really, really it. So I'd say that was probably a really huge defining moment. But then, yeah, of course, watching New Girl, that influenced how I wanted to channel my comedy.
Sounds like maybe High School Musical had a big role too.
Oh, right.
If you can tell us if we'll see some moments that are maybe a little heavier, not necessarily in that action or thriller, but just that maybe stray away from the comedy and get a little heavier.
Oh, 100%. I remember when I read the show for the first time, there were some moments. I mean, it's in the trailer. They talk about the fact that, like, Lana's character, Erica, is dead. Like, that's just how it starts. So, you get into the, like, fun of it, but then they do kind of touch on the bases, though, like, a little bit later, like, hey, guys, like, a high schooler's passed away. They say, like, you establish a world in a show and then you can have fun with the game. So the game is like, she's dead, but she's still physical. So, you play with that game. But then, once the games are done, all that's left is the reality.
So when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh, that's funny. And then I kind of thought about it and I was like, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, it's fun too, because I love when a comedy isn't afraid to stay in a dramatic moment. Obviously, you don't have to make it a full drama, but I like when they're like, if there's a topic that you can actually get serious with, I love when, like, they're not afraid to do that. I mean, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they've obviously had so many pivotal moments because they knew their show was a statement when they did that too. You're just sitting there and you're like, you're going to laugh the next episode. So yeah, you do have a couple minutes to really hone it in.
Right. Kind of give it that realistic. It's not always going to be sunshine and laughs. It's going to be something a little heavier sometimes too.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool when you can dip back and forth.
With so many different things in film, I know one of the most common things that I heard when you look at actors is that comedy is one of the hardest things to actually do. Would you say that that's true, or if you feel that way?
Yeah, because when I first started getting into comedy and improv and stuff, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of cocky just because I can make everyone laugh in my day-to-day. So I was like, I got this. Then I tried stand up once. Notice I haven't tried it since. And then just being with some of the castmates, especially the ones who have been doing it for longer, you just see how seasoned and sharp they are. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really got to lock into that. Like, even one of the castmates, all of us talked about Reed Miller. Every moment he did on screen, from the first table read we did, we were like, oh shoot. So yeah, I feel like the basics of comedy I have down, but there's always room to grow, to just be sharper and just really chew on every moment, because you see how the people who have done it longer, they just know how to be hyperactive and hyper aware to every single moment. And you're just like, yo, I gotta lock into that. So yeah, there's 100% always room to grow and learn in comedy.
I noticed that it looks like you spend some time both in front of and behind the camera. Do you have a preference as to which role you're really in?
Yeah, honestly, in front of the camera has always been my main goal. Behind the camera, I feel like it was great because it gave me such a huge appreciation and understanding, and I have a lot of fun with it. Like, down the line, if I were to ever work on something that I wrote, then I could see myself getting behind the camera again. But other than that, I'm not gonna lie to you, I just don't have the patience anymore. You gotta get so meticulous and fine tune it. And there's a reason why the people who are behind the camera are really good at what they do. It's because they have that kind of calm and patience. And I have to trust other people with it. I'm just like, let's get it out. Let's let people see it. Although it may not be the best that it could be. But yeah, definitely in front of the camera.
I was going to ask if there were pros and cons to both, but it sounds like there may be a little.
I know, right? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I say I feel like a huge con for acting, which is it's like you do the work and then you let it go, and then there's this whole nother side to it after, when it comes to, like, the editing, the coloring, the scoring and stuff. You don't get to see that, which I guess is cool, because then although you worked on the project, you get to see a whole new movie. Because if you do an emotional scene, you're like, I wonder what that's going to look like. Then they add the music and you're like, oh, I deserve an Oscar. So like, it's kind of a nice surprise, but it's also a con too, especially for someone who grew up doing both, because you want to be so part of the entire process. You want your hand in it. Con of behind the camera, one thing I always felt was you want to be part of the fun of someone doing a scene. And obviously with your respect, you're making sure to capture it. So you're making sure to honor that moment, but to be a part of that moment, your little actor heart calls and you just want to be involved as much as possible. I just want all the spots.
You just want to be the star of your own.
I'm not a selfish person, but if I could be in every moment, I would.
That's the Sharpay Evans jumping back.
There we go. There we go.
Is there anything that you want to add in about Boo Bitch when it comes out?
Nah, just, July 8th, get ready. Super stoked for everyone to see it, and have a fun time with it.